Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight we have Jackson Browne, and this is going to be coming from 1976. It's another Old Grey Whistle Test video and he's going to be playing through For a Dancer. So let's get Jackson up on screen and see how he gets on.
Keep a fire burning in your eye. Pay attention to the open sky. You never know what will be coming down. I don't remember losing track of you. You were always dancing in and out of you. I must have thought you'd always always keeping things real by playing the clown. Now you know where to be found. I don't know what happens when people die. Can't seem to grasp it as hard as I try. It's like a song I can hear playing right in my ear. I can't help listening. I can't help feeling stupid standing round, crying as they ease you down. 'Cause I know that you'd rather we were dancing, dancing our sorrow away. Right on dancing. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. Just do the steps that you've been shown by everyone you've ever known, until the dance becomes your very own. No matter how close to yours another steps have grown, in the end there is one dance you'll do alone.
I'm just going to jump in here while we're looking at David Lindley here with his little solo section, but just breaking this song down and breaking the performance down, because Jackson Browne, again, one of those classic singer-songwriters who just really wrote from personal experience, and this, especially For a Dancer, was about one of his friends who died in a house fire, he was a dancer, but he also did many other things. But unfortunately, he was in his sauna, and the house caught fire, and he was oblivious to that actually happening. And this is one of those songs that I suggest you don't stop it like I'm doing. Just watch it the whole way through. The link to this video is going to be in the description below. Have a listen to this track and just read through the lyrics whilst the track's going on, because it adds such another dimension to the meaning behind the song and the way that the lyrics are put together so well. And it is a really sad song. It's one of those songs that just really hits home about life and death, and the way that Jackson uses this metaphor of dancing in order to get across the meaning of the track. There's a line where he says, "In the end, there's a dance you do alone," and it is so deep, the meaning of these lyrics, just the way that he's referring to just dancing other people's dance, just dance the way that they teach you, but then also dance your own way. And no matter how close you get to someone, and no matter how similar your dance is of somebody else's, unfortunately you will have to do a dance alone in the end. And it is really poignant, it's really deep, it's one of those songs you just have to listen to the lyrics all the way through. And of course, there's no guitar in this performance, but this performance will share so many aspects from other bands and other artists and singer-songwriters. Jackson absolutely can communicate through his voice. The way that he delivers his vocal has that talking quality to it, but also here with David Lindley here on violin, the way that he's playing with that slow vibrato and vibratoing all the notes. It's something that you do get on violin just to make it sing all the time. And we've got these violin lead lines throughout the whole track, but it's so tastefully played by David that it just absolutely sits in there just behind the piano. Another thing to look out for is when Jackson is playing, to hear the dynamic change in some of the chords that he's playing. He's not just playing the piano all at one level, focusing on particular beats and particular parts of the chord. He can really throw that in there. It's something that's going to obviously fly under the radar when you are listening in to those lyrics and really following the story. But there is so much dynamic control in this performance, just in order for those lyrics to have the most effects, because you're not getting drowned out by any instruments. It's just absolutely perfectly played on violin and piano. But let's get back into it.
Keep a fire for the human race. Let your prayers go drifting into space. You never know what will be coming down. Perhaps a better world is drawing near. Just as easily it could all disappear, along with whatever meaning you might have found. Don't let the uncertainty turn you around. Go on and make a joyful sound. Into a dancer you have grown, from a seed somebody else has thrown. Go on ahead and throw some seeds of your own, and somewhere between the time you arrive and the time you go, may lie a reason you were alive, but you'll never know.
And there we have it. And the thing that sticks out with Jackson and the way that he writes and the way that he plays, it's one thing to just write great lyrics. It's another thing to have the technical ability to play your instrument so well. Also, the technical ability to sing like Jackson does. He has such cool little trills that he throws in there, but it is always like he is talking to you, so he really draws you in. So you've got all of those elements, but it is a whole nother thing to then add melody and have something that's memorable when you're singing it, in order to then just be walking around and repeating that melody in your head, because it's so strong, but absolutely suits the purpose of the track as well. You can imagine that if the melody was all over the place and too busy, then you'd lose that meaning, because you need to have that slow delivery in terms of that melody, being able to connect over the top of the chords, not make it too busy, so that then you can understand those lyrics. It is such a fine balancing act to get all of these elements together in perfect quantities, but Jackson just somehow manages to do it. There seem to be so many great singer-songwriters around in the 1970s, and fortunately we've got this great resource of the Old Grey Whistle Test, so we can have a look at some of these performances now on YouTube. The other thing about this show is that they do show you little facts whilst the performance is going on, which is great, and I'd love to have a show like this nowadays. We'd need the new Grey Whistle Test, where just bands and artists come on and just plug in and play live and just have little facts on screen. It'd be so cool to just have something like that again for nowadays, you know, just artists that are playing for the youth to then be able to get into and have a similar kind of show. Obviously, I'm talking about without auto-tune and all those other technical, logical things that have happened nowadays to the industry. Just get people to plug in and play and just get back to what music is, just artists playing and communicating with an audience. And I know that we've seen a few facts on screen already, but I just want to cover how Jackson became a little bit more well known, because before he got his big break, he was just writing songs for other artists. And those artists include Greg Allman and Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles as well. But in 1972, that's when he got his break, where he signed to Asylum Records, which was his manager's record label, who was David Geffen at the time. And it was that album in 1972 that was just self-titled by Jackson as Jackson Browne that had the track Dr. My Eyes on it, and that as a single got into the top 10 singles chart in the US. And there was also a track on there called Song for Adam, and that really did lay the foundation and give you a really great insight into Jackson's writing and how personal it was, because that was a friend of Jackson's who had passed away. So it was really deep writing on that first album straight away. Off the back of that album, of course, Jackson toured to get the music out there, where he shared the stage with Joni Mitchell and also Linda Ronstadt, who I mentioned that he had actually previously written for. So he was getting his name out there, and in 1973 he recorded another album which was called For Every Man, and unfortunately that didn't do as well in terms of the sales, even though it was seen as a really high quality album. And I say that it didn't do as well in sales as that first album, the debut album, but it still sold over 1 million copies, so still not bad. And in 1974, he released his album called Late for the Sky, and that got to number 14 in the US Billboard album charts, and that was the album that really solidified his sound as an artist in terms of that singer-songwriter with those really personal, insightful lyrics, but also it highlighted his ability as a composer and as an arranger in terms of putting these tracks together with that fantastic sense of overall melody. And in 1976, Jackson released his album called The Pretender, and this one had some really deep stuff on there because unfortunately his first wife, who was called Phyllis Major, committed suicide, and he wrote a song after her passing and included it on this album, which he actually co-wrote with Phyllis's mother. So again, really personal songs and personal lyrics in there that relate to such life-changing events that these singer-songwriters just absolutely put their heart and soul into what they're getting down on paper and what they're putting into their songs. And in the 1980s, Jackson released 4 more albums, and he also spent a lot of his time playing at benefit concerts and charity events and just raising awareness for those issues that were close to his heart. And in 1993, he released his critically acclaimed album, which is called I'm Still Alive, and a bit of trivia about that album is that a track called Sky Blue and Black that was on that album was actually used in the pilot episode of a show called Friends, which is an American comedy show. I'm sure all you guys know it because it went on to be very successful and recorded about 20 million series. I'm not going to have time to get through all of Jackson's albums one by one, but in 2004 he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce said about Jackson that he wrote the songs that the Eagles wished they had written. In the previous year, 3 of Jackson's albums, which were For Every Man, Late for the Sky, and The Pretender, were included in the top 500 albums of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. And in 2007 he was inducted inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and that same year he won the Harry Chapin Humanitarian Award for the amount of work that he's done for charity throughout the years and continues to do. In 2014 he released his 14th studio album, which was called Standing in the Breach, but he's had such a long and fruitful career, and not only the songs that he's released himself but the ones that he's written for other artists that have then gone on to do very well. But you can tell straight away in this performance the command that he's got over the audience, everyone absolutely engaged in this story that he's telling, but also just keeping in that really personal content in his songs, which all the great singer-songwriters seem to do. They just literally put their heart and soul into the music and into the songs. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!